Okay, it's 4:30. Welcome to this exclusive by invitation only session of MOQ. We apparently drove everyone away on Monday. This session, as always, is being recorded. This is the IETF Note Well. It's Thursday. You've all seen it. This covers the implications of you being here, both in terms of what we expect for you in terms of conduct and legal and IP concerns. Read it if you haven't read it. By now you all figured out how to use MeetEcho, but if you are here in the room, please scan the QR code on any of the mic stands or in the back of the room to register your presence here at the meeting. If you have the full client on your laptop, make sure it is muted. If you are operating remotely and have any plans at all to speak at the mic, please use a headset if you can to avoid echo cancellation problems. Once again, it is possible to watch MOQ over MOQ. Here's the URL. Magnus is going to put it in the Zulip chat in just a moment. And you will have to continue to use the MeetEcho Lite client to do all the Q stuff, etc., and participate in the chat. But you can watch the actual video over MOQ, which is pretty cool. Thanks to our friends at MeetEcho who are MOQ enthusiasts for allowing this to happen. Of course, if we can watch MOQ over MOQ, aren't we done? Can't we just ship it? Alan says yes.
Oh yeah, we're not done.
People can watch video over the internet now, so I guess we're done. This is the agenda for today. It is much shorter because this is one of the focuses today is going to be to burn down some of the ever-increasing MOQ issue stack. And we're also going to talk about some other, they're transport related. They're currently sitting as extension drafts. Doesn't mean they'll forever be extension drafts, but they're certainly in the transport, and so we want to talk about those issues. Would anyone like to bash this agenda? Or tomorrow's, which is unchanged from Monday? Okay. That's the end of the presentation, so I think we'll hand it to Will.
Thank you. Let me just get an audio check. Is everything, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I wish I was there, but I am here, as we said. I'm going to present the section on Will Law from Akamai, presenting the section on sender-side track switching. Next slide, please.
You have slide control.
Oh, I do. Nice. Let me find it. Here I go. So just a reminder for those who've been following along, this is not new. We began it in February with a design team get together. We've had 2 implementations built, one by Cisco, one by Nokia. And at London, we presented it and received a bunch of feedback. That feedback has been incorporated in the design. So I'm going to review what's been incorporated and present it for you today. You might wonder what happened to DTS? Well, we renamed it, right? So SSTS stands for sender-side track switching. We felt this was a better name and descriptor of what the functionality is. It can bring you server-side ABR if you want to give it a media vernacular, but we try to keep it payload agnostic, so it's basically switching tracks on the sender or the publisher side. The largest change we've made is to accommodate different algorithms for switching. So as soon as we posted the one algorithm, everyone came up and said, you know what, if we involve client buffer levels or RTT or some measure of the history or a new exponentially weighted average scheme that they have, we would get a better result. And everyone's right about this. And the point is, there's many features that you might want to add in the future. And if we bake all of these permutations into an RFC, it's going to be huge and I believe brittle. And it's not going to be very extensible because someone will invent a new way of doing it that's better. So we decided to separate the design into a base component, which other algorithms can then extend. So we've taken our switching set assignment parameter, which is how you add a subscription to a switching set. It now has only two required fields: the switching set ID, which is the switching set you want to put it in, and then an algorithm identifier. And this allows us to support multiple algorithms, improved algorithms from the ones we have today, or ones we can't even imagine today but want to implement in the future. And each of those algorithms can then define additional fields for the switching set assignment parameter. And to accommodate this field difference, we've added a new setup option called SSTS algorithms. So the server during setup can list the SSTS algorithms that it supports, and the client will then have knowledge of those algorithms and know that it can use it. And if the relay does not want to support SSTS, it can return an empty list that is perfectly valid. So you can turn it off if you want to. And we have an IANA registry where you can register these new algorithms. And what we've done is define algorithm 0. So we make the core MOQT spec defines this baseline structure, and then it also defines algorithm 0, which is an intentionally simple implementation. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't work well. We have two implementations that show it working, but it can certainly be changed or improved under conditions in the future. But we're going to come out the door with a working implementation. Alan, are you in queue for clarification?
It is a clarifying question. Are you intending that there can be multiple switching sets in the same session using different algorithms?
Yes.
Okay, then.
I see no reason not to support that. We might have one that is biased for extreme low latency switching. We might have another that's biased for 6-second switching and takes into account client buffers that don't really exist in a real-time environment. So
in the same session, like between the same two endpoints, I've got one set of tracks. I've got my audio tracks with algorithm 1 and my video tracks with algorithm 2.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Continuing. So as I mentioned, we define a default algorithm 0, and this default algorithm immediately extends the switching set assignment parameter to add in the additional fields that we defined in the initial draft design and in the PR. So we've added throughput threshold, set throughput fraction that has since been renamed weight. This was a comment from Alan, so that change was made yesterday. Activate switching and set rank is actually no longer optional. It's a required because of the serialization of this parameter. And these rules we presented in London, they have not changed. So the weights and the ranking, you can set everything the same rank. You have a very simple scheme, but this allows you, for example, to have 3 switching sets in operation simultaneously. It might be video, audio, and slides in a web conferencing scenario. And you can have, under differing throughput availability, you can fail down. So you can always preserve this highest switching set here because it's got the lowest rank. It's the most important. So it always gets allocated the bandwidth first and then the second one. And it can be that you run out of available bandwidth and you just don't deliver under certain scenarios one of your switching sets. This is, again, by design. Several comments were made about DDoS protection, and to try to head this off, we originally had 2 setup options which limited the concurrent throughput and the concurrent tracks that you could use with DTS. And I think Gwendol has written extensively on this, and Gwendol is also right. This is a clear attack vector. However, setting up per session restrictions is trivial to bypass, and this was commented a lot in London. If we set up a limit per session, you just open up more sessions and you bypass all our limits. So really, we have to fall back on a relay protecting itself. It has to look at its resources, and it has to, irrespective of anything negotiated with the client, protect itself from abusive behavior. So the consensus in London was to remove these 2 setup options. And it is an attack vector, and relays, amongst all the other things they have to do, need to make sure that under a scenario where the client's giving very little traffic but is causing a lot of traffic to move in the network, that they can recognize this and perhaps discontinue the session. Some other items we decided in London. So issue number one was, do we need the ability to remove a subscription from a set without unsubscribing from that? In other words, I don't want to switch it automatically, but I just want to pull it out. No one could come up with an immediate use case for this. So for the simple algorithm number 0, you can't do that. But future algorithms can implement a more sophisticated removal mechanism if you like it. The second decision we made here was repeating the switch ID. This is repeated with each subscription that you make each time you pass that switching set assignment parameter. Was it a good design? And we decided yes, because it avoids an extra RTT in defining the set and then waiting, getting a confirmation that the set's been defined and then being able to use it in a subscription. So we've kept this design. And then there were also requests to add timeout and stability measures. This came from the Mocktail guys with their implementation experience. And we're not going to add these to algorithm 0, but again, future algorithms can add them, more sophisticated algorithms. And you can quickly work yourself into corner cases with this. So I like the idea that we can have multiple algorithms and can experiment with different timeout and stability damping functions. So I believe this work is now represented as PR 1638. We've resolved the major issues and the comments which are there, including Alan's exuberant 24 comments that he wrote in an external Google Doc. Those were all addressed yesterday and the day before, so that is in there. We've implemented the decision and the changes in London, and have also resolved the merge conflicts. So I'm here. I believe the PR is ready to be merged, and I'm open up for comment in the remaining time that we have on SSTS. Let me just see if there's a comment from Alan for Q.
I have a question about, I don't remember any of the comments I left in the doc, but I thought you just said, I thought on the previous slide you said you can't remove a track from a switching set in algorithms.
It's not true. You can by unsubscribing it. You unsubscribe the track and it gets.
But then but I thought that in the review maybe I left a comment about the fact that I thought you said you can remove. Okay, maybe I need to go back and reread the text. So there should be no way to change the switching set ID of a subscription. Like you put it in and it's in. You can't remove it. You can unsubscribe from it. That's it.
You can unsubscribe it. You can't change the ID that it's subscribed to. Okay, so
I thought I saw a text in the PR that said you could explained how to change the ID. So maybe I'm misreading, or maybe it's been updated.
Yeah.
Ian Sweat. I think from a design perspective, this looks good. Thank you for updating this. I have not reviewed the most recent PR, but I have reviewed previous ones. So I think, I don't know, we can go back and forth on that. I actually was unclear about where we landed on this, about like whether it's supposed to be a PR or a draft. I realize I don't want to go too far into process, but
So we
as
did.
an editor, I want to know.
We did do a consensus call that it was supposed to be a draft. That is the current state of what is supposed to happen. Like, if you like this PR and you think it's ready, and you guys have the 4 of you think it's great, then we could just do that. Or we could have it do it a draft. We don't have the discussion right now. I think we do it offline with Will.
Okay. Yeah.
But yes, that is the correct state.
I don't like to be put in the subjective situation of rejecting or accepting things like this, which like the working group might have strong opinions on. Like, I'm happy to get it ready to merge into the draft, and like, of course we will do that. But like, I would rather the call be made by the chairs, the working group, some larger group, because I don't want to be on the hook for like saying either yes or no, honestly.
Can I remind the room that we had this exact discussion in London, and it was decided that because our charter requires us to implement some implementation of ABR on the server side, that we could, this was originally written as an external draft. And then the request was rewrite it as a PR, which was what was done. So if we look at the minutes for London, that was a decision taken in London. And I'm not arguing either way. I wrote the draft and then I wrote the PR. If someone wants to take it out and make it a draft again, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to wrap around the axle about this. It's entirely possible I've forgotten something. That happens all the time, unfortunately. If the editors would like us to do a consensus call to cover themselves on this, and they do feel it is ready, we are happy to do that. But we could do that unless you don't do it here. Colin. Oh no, I'm sorry. Mike is next in the queue.
Thank you. Yeah, so I also had the draft question, but we can discuss more offline. The other thing that I was thinking as you were presenting these slides is on the DDoS topic. It sounds like the intent is that we have recourse at the session level, that we negotiate this in setup, and if you don't like the limits, then the session dies. Has there been any thought about something more granular than that to communicate limits? You know, once things are kind of in flight, you've got maybe multiple switching sets or something going on. Yeah, I'm just trying to think about this more in terms of the implications for actual applications when you hit these limits, because I'm expecting that we will have limits in place that some applications may be running into.
Okay, that's a good question, Mike. So currently, yes, it's up to the discretion of the relay implementation if it wants to kill the whole session, or maybe just terminate the subscriptions that are involved in that switching set.
Oh.
So my vote would be that it terminates the offending subscriptions for a switching set that it feels has an asymmetric ratio. There's too much data coming in and not enough data going out. And that's the ratio I would monitor if I were building a relay. And we're not going to set that as a negotiated parameter because the client will just open up more and more sessions and do accumulated damage on the relay. But I think the spec has existing mechanism for the publisher to terminate the subscription with an appropriate message. So I think that's what a relay could do in that situation.
So Cisco, thanks Will for updating the PR. I reviewed the latest PR and I like the fact that we are going based on the algorithm. That way if someone wants to do something more advanced, they can still do. And we also have different default algorithm for someone to get started. And we have proved with the 2 implementations that the default algorithm is pretty much useful in many of the cases that we tried. Under constrained networks. At least my test was with Wi-Fi network constrained, some with like full flow, some with like constrained flows, and it was reacting pretty well. So I do feel that this is a useful addition to MOQ, and whatever way we can support it, we should support it.
So, Martin, this is just a question about the process here. Yeah. Do you want to clarify it all before I even start, or what I mean? So, I think I heard you say, maybe I understand correctly, that the chairs and the editor of this draft, that Will and the editors could decide whether they were going to merge this into the document or not. Is that?
We have a process where the editors and authors can unanimously choose to bring things into the MOQ draft. It is obviously subject to we have these consensus calls on every draft diff, where now it behooves them to consult the working group to not revert things and create a mess. But that is the process. We do not do a consensus call on every PR that goes into the document.
So my understanding of the process is that is supposed to be bringing things in, that the document is supposed to represent consensus, the working group document, and that we do our best not to bring things into that. They often made decisions on things that are very obvious, right? But that no, this needs working group consensus to go in. And I think Ian's point was we don't have that. And I don't think that I think that the working group chairs determine consensus, but I don't think it's your choice. It's not what the chairs want here. It's not what the editors want. It's what the working group wants, whether there is consensus to put this in or not. Do we agree on the process here? Because what I just said is quite different than what you said a few minutes ago. Okay.
I think saying for DTS, we actually held a consensus call to add the functionality, which there was strong consensus to do. And in that email also,
there was no consensus when measured at that point in time to merge it as it was.
No, I agree with that. There's never been a consensus call on merging it, etc. that way.
Yeah.
The working group chair's instructions to the DTS was to do a draft, the same as was given to top end,
which I believe they have. And now they have done a PR as well, which looks like an excellent PR, and I think it's ready to merge and should be merged.
Yeah.
And I think that if we're going to make a decision about that, we should have some agenda time to discuss the pros and cons of either side, right? But I think that needs to be a working group decision is all I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Just seeing there's only 6 minutes. I think we have a lot of we need to kind of get our ducks in a row on what our process is here, but I don't want to take the 6 minutes and 38 seconds. If somebody has technical questions about this draft, I will yield my time. I guess I just want to make it entirely clear. I said in the chat.
Can you quickly answer what you would like us to do to merge this?
Okay. This is my read of the RFC that defines what an editor does is that we reflect the consensus of the working group into the document. And we have a process in place where we obviously do our best. We have this sort of check amongst ourselves that for anything that's designed, both the editors and both the authors have to agree that that reflects the consensus of the working group. But I think for bigger issues like this, it does not hurt to have a consensus call as you have issued on the list. Is this ready to go into the document? And I'm totally fine with adding that for big things where we want to make sure like that we're doing it right, and rather than putting it in and have to take it out.
All right,
so
great.
I think I would like a clear.
I will initiate a call on the list.
Okay. My only ask is that one way or the other, I don't want to keep iterating on this as a PR because I find that to be very hard to do. Either it needs to go in or it needs to be in a draft, but like I had 30 comments and I'm like, this will overwhelm GitHub. So I had to go do them in another tool. So like just from a purely practical point of view, it just needs to be a draft, not one PR. Thanks.
Mosin and Cisco. Two quick questions, Will. First, on the default, I like the extensibility of the algorithms. The default 0-1, is that something that can be removed, or is it something that's going to be, ossified thing forever? If we determine
it's ossified forever because we're writing it into a document that we hope to publish as an RFC. So. But it's ossified from the fact that it's reliable, right? Algorithm 0 will function that way. If you don't want to use it, write algorithm 2 or 3 or 4.
Could it be negotiated the same way that the future ones will be negotiated, so that if we decide it's a bad idea, that we just deprecate it? And
could we deprecate it? One option is to remove it completely. So. Again, if we're going to write this as an extension, then when your relay is negotiating, does it have SST support? It sends a list of algorithms it supports.
Oh, so you cannot include 0 in the list. You cannot include 0 in the list of supported algorithms.
It could not include 0.
Okay, then I'm good.
We should probably, per your point, check the language, because I think the language says it's a default algorithm and it must be implemented by the relay. But we could put an allowance in there to say the relay can choose not to implement this algorithm and to not advertise it in its list of supported algorithms.
Got it. Okay. And the second thing is, I know that MOQ is only talking about the endpoint to edge relay, but it seems that this design is expecting that edge relay to pull all the tracks, pull the entire ladder down. And is there any guidance about limits on that? Because if the ladder is big and the endpoint only needs one track.
That's exactly the DDoS question, which we've discussed, and there's a lot of comments on the thread for that. But we decided that all the restrictions we try to set up to protect it can be trivially bypassed. So it is true. And the spec as written says the relay should issue a subscribe forward equals 1 for all the tracks to keep them fresh so that when the client wants the track, it can switch quickly. We could introduce a second algorithm, which is the same as the first, but it does subscribe equals 0 upstream. But now you will have a delay, right? As soon as you want to switch to a track, you have to go upstream and get the track down to you, and then you can switch to it.
Okay, so that behavior is algorithm specific?
Yes.
That forwarding behavior, okay. That's better.
Okay.
Ian Sweat, is it possible to add an algorithm, you can call it 1 or 0, I don't really care what it is, which is like server knows best? Like the server can just say like, I know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Because
it's
like
certainly possible.
It's a lot of use cases I have.
It's certainly possible. We can do that. I don't like that because I don't think the server really knows best most of the time. There's a lot more, and servers get ossified far faster than clients do. So I'm scared of, there's multiple server nodes based algorithms built in servers from 2005, and they're no longer valid.
Okay,
But
fair point.
can we do that? Yes, we can do that. So I would just like some clarity from the chairs then. Do you when you say you want this as a draft, do you want it as a extension draft? In other words, it defines an extension to MOQT and it implements essentially what we have here.
I think it's already today in some form is an extension because it's not mandatory to support, is it? Therefore, it's an extension, even if it would be within the context of MOQT specification. I think what we want to say now at this point is that we will run the consensus call to merge the PR in its current form. And in case that is not, there's not draft consensus to do that, we expect a draft. Just to be clear.
But that draft does what? Defines a completely separate.
The draft contains the specification for the functionality.
Via an extent, how does it integrate it into MOQT? Does it define an extension? But it's
as an extension, I don't see the difference here. What's your?
Okay. Well, it's possible to write a draft that doesn't define an extension to MOQT and just defines an informational draft. I just want to be clear on what you're asking for.
Okay, so in about 2 weeks, we'll have a resolution to this. Colin.
Okay, so one thing I just want to say is that the current PR does define the text as the list of supported algorithms can be empty, which means you don't do SST. Right.
Yeah, so, right. So functionally, this is an algorithm. This whole discussion is about like the ergonomics of like sorting this into different drafts.
And so,
which people feel strongly about, I recognize, but that's what it is about. And it does have implications for managing the workload, but fundamentally does not change what gets deployed in the world, what draft these things are.
Right. So before we have a consensus call on this, I'd like the opportunity to have some time to discuss the pros and cons of these two approaches.
Yes.
And I disagree with Magnus that if we don't have consensus to merge the PR, it automatically becomes a working group draft. We will also have to get consensus that the working group, that the draft will be adopted as a working group draft. That also needs consensus, correct? Right, on the same page?
So
yeah, considering that we already had the consensus call on the functionality, I could see that we could adopt it immediately as a working group document because we have agreement in the working group to specify the functionality.
Your position is going to be that we already had that consensus call.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a.
So
okay.
so if we all agree the work should be done and we can disagree on how it is done and we neither adopt it nor put it in the draft, then we are not pursuing the work, which seems like a perverse outcome.
So I think the third thing that there's a third option that is actually, which is the alternative that I propose to not merging this PR if we don't want to move this PR, which is you remove the algorithm 0 definition out. My problem always with putting this in a separate draft, and I'd like more time to discuss this, is it's very hard to understand how it fits into the processing in the base draft, in the transport draft. And so if we left the part of this PR that doesn't define algorithm 0, just defines all the other parts of it and how it fits in where you process in the base transport, and you move the algorithm 0 to a separate draft along with other drafts, that would actually that would resolve the problems that I think are an issue. Now, I'm not, we've never had a chance to talk about those problems or anything. What I'm saying is there's a clear third option here as well.
Okay, so I think what Cullen is saying is that we should delay the consensus call until we have virtual interim time to discuss the draft through of this, which
that would be my ask, is get some time to talk about.
I mean, we could take the time. It's slowing us down more, but that's okay. We got to get it right. All right, Alan.
Thanks, Cullen, for offering that third option, because I hadn't really considered that. But like, if you just take the shell of SSTS, just like, oh, we added a parameter, it doesn't really do anything. Like, I have a hard time saying that doesn't, that doesn't. I'd have no objection to doing that. The thing I wanted to raise actually was Victor made a technical point in the chat. I wanted to make sure that got raised, which was, if I understand correctly, how you negotiate the algorithms right now, the server is offering the list, and the publisher is offering a list, and the subscriber is choosing. And I think Victor's ask was like, is there a way to say, like, I would sort of like, do we want to offer the publisher more control here, which is like, the publisher came up with a new cool algorithm and really wants the subscriber to choose it. But anyway, you do the best that you can. Or maybe Victor, you can make your own point, but I thought it was a good point. We should think about it.
All right, thanks, Will.
Yeah, just to reply, I could certainly do that. The relay can offer up its favorite algorithm as the only item in the list, and the client has no choice but to accept that algorithm if it wants to use SSTS. So it's a way for the server can choose by essentially not mentioning any other option. Okay, thanks.
So this is Mo talking about location filters, which are in fact going into the base draft. And so it is a PR appropriately.
Mo Zanatti. This is a location filter. Worked with Victor on this, PR 1809, and it was earlier 1401. So to recap the current design in MOQ-T, there is a location filter parameter already, and it can appear in subscribe, publish, OK, request updates. And it has a filter type enum inside of it, and then some optional fields for start and end locations. The current filter types defined are, one is the next group, and this is relative to the largest object that the publisher maintains. Then the next one is the next object, 2. It's technically called largest object in the draft right now, but that's wrong. It's actually the next object because it's largest object plus 1. And then there's, those are both relative to largest object. Then you can also specify absolute locations using filters 3 and 4, absolute start, where you just provide the start, no end, and absolute range, where you provide both a start and an end. And so there's rules about when those optional parameters appear for the different filter type enums. Then PR 1673 for fill fetch adds some more. It initially added many, and now it reduced them and only adds 1. The critical one is the relative start fill, enum type 5. And that adds another optional field called relative previous, which is how many groups back you want to start. So a start group delta of n, again, relative to largest object. And there were also in earlier versions of that PR, absolute start fill and absolute range fill. And the latest version just makes those replace absolute start and range and absolute range. But I think that's probably an oversight, and we're probably not going to be able to completely replace those. We probably still need to have different fill variants of those. But anyway, so we have a bunch of enums, a bunch of different ways you can subscribe. The new design that's being proposed, same location filter parameter, same messages that it goes in, but the difference is we eliminate the enum. There's no more filter type enum, and you just put in the start and end locations. And they're again optional. Those fields are optional, and you can only omit from the end. So you could omit just the end object, which means all objects in that end group. You can omit the end group and the end object, which means no end to the subscription. You could omit the start object also, and the rest of them, which means that the start group is a relative start group. Or you can include everything. And finally, if you want to remove the filter, just like all the other filters, you can put length equals 0, and that will remove the filter. So you can send a request update to remove filter. That's actually something you can't do today. You cannot remove the current subscription location filters. As a hack, you can change the filter to an absolute start 0 with no end. But that's a really hacky way of trying to remove the filter. This makes the length equals 0 update look just like all the other filters. And again, if only the start group is there and all the other ones are eliminated, then that's a relative start group. And it's relative to next group. So that lets you start at next group if you say 0, current group if you say 1, and prior group if you say 2. Now, this doesn't say anything about if you're asking for prior groups, whether that happens on a fill fetch stream or whether that's doing rewind kind of, live subscribe streams, or whether that just means your filter starts that early, but you're not going to get any of those objects because they're already gone. Those semantics are not part of this PR. This PR is only about the spelling of how you specify the locations that you're interested in. What happens about that interest, whether that triggers fill fetch streams or something else, will be handled by 1673. And we also have this special filter called largest object, which should actually be called next object. And if you put a start group and object of 0, that is the way to invoke that next object filter. You always start at the next object, and there's no end for that. And then the absolutes should be, pretty straightforward. Absolute group IDs, absolute object IDs. Alan.
You were going kind of fast, and I apologize, I have not read the PR, but did you say that there's a way to spell relative previews with this?
Yes, so start group.
Which, is it on the slide somewhere? Am I missing?
Yeah, so it's the second bullet. If only start group is present. See, if you put only a start group, then that is a relative start group. It's not an absolute start group.
Only a start group is a relative start group, but it has to be in the past, not the future.
Yeah. So yeah,
it has to be subtracted from
yes,
largest instead of added. Okay.
Yes. So
what you have is a little compact. I probably just need to read it better.
Yeah. So what we have today in the current drafts and in the current PRs is we have in joining fetch, you have relative joining start, which is a number of groups. And in fill fetch in 1673, we have this relative fill previous or something, relative fill previous. And that's also a number of groups back from the current group to fetch. So to do that here, you only put in a start group, and that start group becomes relative. If you put start group and start object, and then that's absolute, it's no longer relative. And one other point that I forgot to put on the slide is this is not negotiated. The other filters that were talked about before are negotiated with setup options. This is not negotiated. This is baked in because it's core functionality that's required for subscribe and fetch. So these are not negotiated filters at all. Okay, so a comparison between the old and the new. There's no change in functionality, so you can think of it as a spelling change because all of the enum filter types that we had before map directly to a new way with this new location filter. So next group, you just put start group equals 0, and that will start you at the next group. Next object, which was called largest object in the draft today, you just put start group object 0. And absolute start, you just put an absolute start and group as an object. Absolute range, you put start and end, absolute group and object IDs.
Okay, and then the way you start at 0 is actually by not sending anything at all?
Start what? Subscription.
I want absolute start range 0.
Yeah, that's unfiltered.
That's unfiltered. So you don't send it.
You don't send it. Yes.
What about? Okay.
And the draft kind of hints today to do that if you want to remove a filter. It doesn't actually say this is how you remove a filter, but it hints that absolute start 0 is equivalent to an unfiltered subscription.
Should I only be doing clarifying questions right now?
No. I'm assuming.
Why is your proposal so bad? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. We're-
My only, I like, there's pieces of it that are easier to understand. Like absolute is just very easy. It's like, it's right there. But I feel like some of these other ones were like, when we had an enum that defined what you were doing instead of a special encoding, it was slightly more clear. But I don't care that much. So,
Okay, so no, but I want to make sure it's not confusing if I explain. So start group, a single number of start group. When would you ever want that to be something absolute? So that's
okay.
that's
It makes, now that like I've seen a slide with it and thought about it for like a while, I think, and I will go back and do the math to make sure that all the edge cases are covered, but I more or less trust that you've done that and that there isn't anything you can't specify. It's only, so I don't think what you've done is wrong. It's just, it's not quite as direct as like, right now, if I want the next group, I just say next group, which I recognize is, I shouldn't confuse API and wire.
no, but you don't just say next group. You have to say next group, and then you have to figure out whether or not you include those fields, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying that there's some pros and there's some trade-offs here. I think this is fine. I'm not arguing against it.
So in addition to the current draft, it also supports the exact features that the fill fetch 1673 provides too. So the relative group start is again just putting a single start group, and the absolute start and range is putting absolute numbers. All right. So mention fill a few times. The expectation is that this would land before fill because it seemed smaller, and that we would update fill to use this. And I'm willing to do the update so you don't have more work on your plate, Alan. We'll update fill to use this instead of the enums, instead of extending the enums. So what this would look like in fill is two separate location ranges, one in the subscribe for the live portion and one in the fill parameter for the fill portion. Fill right now uses the enum to trigger the fill fetch stream, and the fill parameter is optional. But this would make, there's no enums anymore for the filter types. So you add the fill parameter explicitly when you want to fill, and that's the trigger. If you add a fill parameter, you're going to get a fill fetch stream. If you don't add a fill parameter, you're not going to get a fill fetch stream. So that's the interaction with fill. And the two separate ranges allow you to express different filters for the subscribe part versus the fill part. So there was, people argued about whether or not you should allow a single range and implicitly try to break up that single range into a live and a fill. But this way, with two separate explicit ranges, you know exactly, the subscriber knows exactly, I want this for my subscribe filter and I want this for my fill request. And I didn't dare put this on the slide, but if people that liked rewind want to do something like that again, or the original purpose of the fill fetch was including current object on live streams, this spelling would allow that without any more wire changes. It would just be a semantic change to say, if you get a subscription with these things in it, it means deliver even those old objects over live subscribe streams. So if people want that, they can revive that as purely a semantic change in the meaning of this filter without any wire changes. So here's an example of what you would put in subscribe. You'd put the location filter parameter, and that is for the live subscription. So location filter parameter 00 means start at the next object. So that's basically, start right now at the live head, but don't give me the old stuff. I don't want any replays because I'm going to fetch old stuff. So the fill parameter is added to fetch the old stuff, and you put a location filter of 1, which means start at the current group. So you're going to fetch starting from the current group object 0 to the live head in a fill fetch stream. And you're going to have your live subscription filtered to start at that live edge. So you don't get the objects twice. If they're old, you don't get them on both the live subscription and the fill fetch stream. One new functionality that this also provides is that now the subscription itself can have a filter that even applies to the past. So when would you use this? This would be useful if you wanted to say, I have a tolerance for one group in the past. So the current group, even old objects in the current group, I want you to deliver them to me. If things come reordered in the current group, I want them. Today, the only way that you can start a filter on the live edge is the largest object filter. So that means you have to ignore everything that came before the live head. This would allow you to say, no, I would also like the objects that may be reordered in the current group or in the past two groups, but still filter out everything really old. So that's a new functionality that this would provide that some subscribers may have a use for. This is an example of how you do that. You just say location filter 1, and so that means I'm starting my filter at the current group. It doesn't mean I'm going to go fetch things from the current group object 0. It just means that if those objects come late, reordered, let them come through. Okay. Hopefully that was all clear for the fetch stuff. Looking at you, Alan. Yeah. So now this is about fetch, the classic existing fetch that we have. Fetch today, there's two variants. There's the standalone fetch, which has start and end fixed locations. And then there's joining fetch, which has a joining start location, which could be absolute or relative. So this location filter replaces all of those. So fetch now would require having the location filter parameter. And actually the standalone fetch doesn't require it. It says it can be used. But now if you omit the in standalone fetch, you can request the entire track. If it's a VOD track, you can just say fetch. And if you don't know anything about the timeline or the groups, you can just say fetch and you can get the entire track. And for joining start, again, you have the relative version, which we just provide start group. And so you say that's how many groups back I want my joining fetch to start. Or you can give an absolute joining fetch start group. And even though we made those updates to fetch, it's most likely that the joining fetch section will be completely removed by Phil. And if we wanted to, we could even replace fetch itself one day with Phil, but people may have a harder time doing that, so that might not happen soon. So we just proposed to go ahead and merge this. It seems like a straightforward spelling change and when. And then the follow-on work will be to update 1673 to describe how Phil uses these new location ranges.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe provide a little elaboration or like why I think is a useful thing is to unify we currently have 3 ways to specify how to specify a location range in the draft, and this unifies it. And it is convenient. It is very useful because there is like subscribe and fill, and subscribe technically fill inherits parameters for subscribe, so it would make sense for them to share the syntax. And fill is basically a variety of fetch, so it would make sense for them to share syntax. So I think that is, yeah.
And if we add anything else later that requires location ranges, it's a natural fit for those messages as well.
Colin, I'm not arguing it should be one way or the other, but I was just sort of curious, like, why wouldn't we use this to replace fetch as well?
There's a lot of nuances there. So fetch is not well thought out. If you read it today, there's a lot of broken things in it that just don't make sense. For example, if the track ends, and it's ended, and you get a publish done, it's not even clear you can fetch that track anymore. And for sure, if you eliminate the fetch standalone parameter, standalone message, you couldn't do it with fill fetch parameter because the subscription is ended, right? So things like that, we have to probably rethink about what publish done really means. Publish done should just mean that the live head is done. And fetch OK signals whether the track is ended. We lose fetch OK when you do fill fetch because there's no IDI stream anymore to give the fetch OK on. But so you lose the indication that the track is actually ended and what the end location is. Fetch OK gives you the end location. The track ended. Well, that's another problem with fetch. The end location is ambiguous whether it means this is the end location of this current fetch or whether it's the end of the entire track.
I mean, we added those signals to be able to, I'll let Alan speak here, but yeah.
First of all, if you go file all your issues that you think there are with fetch. We'd love to make sure that they are addressed. This particular one, there is we did differentiate the case where the end of the stream happened because your fetch range extended past the end of the track or not. But I think some of the things you're talking about with fill fetch may be real.
So easier to remove it if people are okay with removing it instead of fixing it. So we can just remove fetch completely. The thing that has to be fixed is publish done. The publish done interactions. Publish done specifies that you can't, you can't go back and do a request update to the subscribe stream to get another, fill location.
Fill fetch says you can. Anyway, let's not talk about fill fetch. Let's talk about this. I just want to say then I say that, and then the one thing I want to point out about the way you have suggested it will go into 1673 is that there'll be two different location filters, and the only thing that gives me it's a little bit weird is that like I can have my subscribe and my fill be like have nothing to do with each other, right? I can go say subscribe to like some group 2 hours ago and fetch some group from a minute ago, and like it's not exactly, we were supposed to be doing joining fetch, and that's not a joining fetch anymore. But maybe that's fine. Maybe we just give everyone all the Legos and they can build whatever castles they want. And
I mean, nothing stops you today from putting nonsensical things in the current location parameters.
Joining fetch. I suppose that's true. Anyway, we were trying, the original goal of 1642 and then 1673 was to like rationalize joining a track. And every change we've made to it has like stepped farther away into like, you can do whatever you want. And like, that's fine if that's what people want to do. But I just want to point it out. But
you can join a track with a single range if that's what you want, and you add a fill parameter if you want to fill. If you intend to do joining fetch, you add the fill parameter. You don't have to put a location in that fill parameter if it's the same as the location.
Okay, guys, we're running low on time, so let's not debate what fetch does today. Victor, I'm going to close the queue very soon. Suhas.
I think thanks for this presentation. I think Alan's point is correct in the sense that even though you can have a degree of control on the fill fetch location filter and subscribe location filter, I think it would be helpful for joining fetch to kind of say that filter ends at the next object or whatever it's called, because that would give someone who's making it very clear smooth transition.
Yeah, it does say that. If you omit the end, it does say that means the end is the largest object. So that's it. Victor dropped off.
Thank you for staying on time. All right.
So are we good to merge, or you want to wait for something, or?
Which editor is going to grace us with their presence? Give them the clicker.
Yep. Did anyone not like that presentation? Because otherwise we're going to like editorialize and merge it whenever it's done.
There was 2 PRs discussed. I don't even know which PR we're talking about. Like, yeah, it's really confusing.
18.0, the one Mo primarily discussed, not 16.
Not the fill.
Not the fill one.
Location, yeah. Okay.
Yep. 1809, right? Well, okay. Oh, thank you. Great. It's a very small screen. Yep. Okay. How can a publisher update a subscription? So we talked about this in the context of SST a little bit, and top-end filters touches on it. There's a number of cases where the publisher unilaterally changes the state of a subscription, and it would be nice to know that. In some cases, it's just nice to know. In other cases, it might actually be fairly critical to the functionality. For example, if you like stop the subscription at a given group, it would be good to know what group the publisher stopped at. So like if you want to subscribe somewhere else, you want to do like just know what to expect. All of those things. It also might be useful, for example, like when sending a go away, but we'll see on that. But the point is, this is like a unilateral, I did this thing, I'm telling you, FYI. So there's a PR now for subscription state update, which kind of provides for that. Originally, we were thinking possibly request update could be used for this. However, request update can fail. And really, request update is a request to update the subscription. is not a statement about the state of the subscription. And so in this case, I think we think no response is required. The current proposal just has one field, which is parameters. You can't even update track properties because you can't update track properties as we discussed in the previous interim. Does this all seem sensible to folks? I think this probably is sensible. I mean, there's a few other ways of spelling it, but like we could put it in as nested params inside a message or something like that. But I think this is the easiest way. Okay.
Yeah. So has Cisco. I think most the use cases that you listed and I have repeatedly proven something like this is useful, and having it not an hacky version but a clear state would be nice. So I support this.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that this message is very useful for SSTS, and give credit to Alan for pointing this out. Right now, when the server switches you, the client just has to observe a change in objects, but it doesn't get an explicit message that a switch has occurred. This would be an excellent conduit for conveying that information, and it could come back on your existing subscription state. So I think it's very nice utility for SSTS.
Martin Duke is an individual. I was not worried about the use cases that you described. I haven't tried to implement SSTS yet or the other switch from or anything. So maybe I will be worried about them. I would actually encourage you to go a little bigger. Like, I think we have other corner cases around like publish done, where like we don't know when it is. If you have a subscription that ends at a particular group as a relay, but you have a subscription to the end of time upstream, you have like no way to send publish done. So I think there's things we could do with like group metadata that would solve a lot of these problems and maybe even allow us to get rid of other mechanisms. I don't want to do that at the mic today, but if like people don't hate that idea, I'm happy to run into the PR and do something. Thanks.
Cool. Interesting point. I believe there's something awkward about publish done. It keeps coming up as weird. So happy to consider that. We could also land this and then do a follow-up. But yeah, Cullen. Oh, wait, yeah.
I apologize, first of all, of that I didn't know this would be on the agenda, so I haven't read it. I'm just reading it for the first time right now. But at casual glance, it seems like, yeah, reasonable, but I think it's just too vague to say it's a state update. I think we need to explain what you can update, when, what the constraints of that are, like make it fairly specific. It's pretty open, do what I mean right now without really much specification of it. So I think it, I like the idea, but I think it needs a bit more constraints and details on what state can be updated and what the relay needs to do of passing that. Does it need to send those downstream or whatever it is? That type of information of how you react when you get one of these, not just like here's how to put the bits on the wire.
Yeah. Alan, is that response to Cullen, or is it?
More or less. I mean, one thing you said in the, maybe it was on the second slide, but the message is unilateral, but all the use cases we have for the most part, are informing the subscriber that something they asked for has now happened.
Yeah.
I was like, I told you to switch from, and then you get a message is like, oh, I switched from now, or I'm doing SSTS, and like, oh, I switched tracks for you, or so it's not like I just randomly, or the other one is top end. I set your forward to 0 because you fell out of the top end. Like, these are all use cases where it's not the publisher acting without the subscriber's intent. And I don't remember the PR I wrote very quickly the other day, so I don't remember if it says that, but I think that's relevant to be like,
sure.
We're not giving a blank check for publishers to just like run roughshod over whatever the subscribers asked for.
Yeah. The word unilateral might have a connotation that's slightly incorrect here.
I'm sorry to jump in, but just on the same thing. I mean, it makes sense, hear what you're saying, but I think we should write down those and think some of those, because if we have a situation where you've got 1 million tracks and suddenly you've changed you've turned a whole bunch of them, you've switched the state on them, like that doesn't work. This will just completely collapse the control channel, right? So we have to be clear. I mean, we have to be able to think through this and make sure that this doesn't create a huge amplification of some sort.
So it's not the switching itself that you're concerned about, but the control message that comes from the switch?
If I'm switching between a very large number of tracks, they'll just happen, and I only get the data for the tracks I'm actually receiving. But if suddenly I start getting notification messages about updates of what's going on, that might be great. I generally like that. As you know, I like to understand why something changed. I'm a big fan of that. But not if there's an opportunity for it suddenly for me to get 1 million updates at once. That would be a bad scenario. And I don't know that it's in that. I think we just need to define what it is, what specific use cases we use it in. And I expect I agree with all of them, but we need to sort of talk about that and think through whether there's any problems with that type of problem.
Yeah, so for switch from, this is very good. So we definitely, for switch from, this is very good. So we, it's something which is necessary. Just a clarification question. The new message, it is on the bidirectional stream of the subscriptions.
Yep.
Right? And so if it is a subscription which is with forward equals 0, it's still open, right?
Or vice versa. Yes.
Okay.
Mosinati Cisco. I think this functionality is very useful. Probably something we overlooked early on. Really needed for the top-end track filter switching, because the unacknowledged messages are much better for that. You want to avoid control message storms, so this reduces everything in half. That's great. Next slide, just one little nit. Next slide. Yeah.
You want this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Back.
Okay.
Maybe back one slide. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the right thing. Publish notify is what it really is, right? It's a publish notify. So what you said there in that first sentence is exactly what we need. It's a notify. There's no ACK. There's no. It's only from the publisher. So I think that's a little bit clearer.
Yeah. Yeah. Notify is probably a better, because update does imply action, which is not what is going on here. Yep. Yep. Good point. Okay. Thank you for all the good commentary. Now let's go on to a slightly more subtle thing.
Hold it, Ian.
What?
To be clear, to get good new notes and minutes from this, summarize what happened with for issue 1803.
Sorry, what?
Can you summarize the conclusions of the discussion we just held?
We are going to rename subscription state update to subscription state notify or something slightly more accurate. We are going to make sure that the PR text has it's clear about what can and cannot be notified, and that you're not supposed to just like do this because you want to. It's supposed to be like as a result of a subscriber request. And I think Martin has an AI to ponder about whether this could make the publish done case cleaner.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
I'll put something in the PR. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right now, when you receive a publish, regardless of why it came, you don't know if it came from a subscribe tracks, and you don't know which subscribe tracks technically it came from, and you also don't know if it didn't come up from a subscribe tracks, with the exception, weirdly, of forward and group order, which we make you include, or I think we suggest you include, I can't remember, which is sort of like, so we basically take two parameters, but there's filters, there's a whole number of other things, priority, and so on and so forth, that we don't have you include today and publish. This is sort of like an odd state of the world, but because it's difficult to know exactly what the state of the publish is, even if you do subscribe tracks today, you might update subscribe tracks. And so like, say you switch from forward equals 0 to 1 or vice versa, and you get a publish, like, I wonder what state it's in. Wouldn't it be nice to know if you actually were going to get data? Seems like a problem. Yeah. So maybe it's not important to know and you can just figure it out from context. This seems a little scary to me, but is it important to know which subscribe tracks cause the publish, if any, is one question. And if so, do you need to know exactly like which version of the subscribe tracks and what the subscribe track state was? If it didn't come from subscribe tracks, so it's a video ingestion type publisher use case, do you need to know the parameters, or is the assumption that the original publisher is just going to send you what they want to send you and you don't really have any control over it anyway? and so it doesn't matter. So is it okay to specify the initial parameters in publish and just instead of saying today we say you can put forward in group order and publish, you can't put anything else. We could say you can put any subscription parameters in publish, and then you would be able to communicate the full state of publish. For the most part, and I think that's maybe for every case, but I can double check. The parameters are not ambiguous in the sense that, like, if it comes in a publish, it's clear that this is the state of the subscription. It doesn't conflict like subscriber or publisher. There's the issue, which I think maybe Mo brought up last time we discussed this. What if you get parameters in whatever way they are conveyed that don't match the corresponding subscribe tracks? Do you have to check for it? Is that an error? Is that just annoying? Is that a bad relay? Like, how do we feel about that? And finally, should we just remove all the parameters from publish, but if you want to send a subscription state update, you can, and reuse the message we just had, which is like an FYI of like, here's the state of the world. There are some other solutions in this space, but kind of these are the questions/solutions. What are people's thoughts? I think we should be able to like get to a solution to this problem, and it's just a matter of like, there's a lot of spellings. I think a number of things might work. Colin, I believe, is first.
I'm still pondering all of this, very interesting. But I was going to just say, it's almost a trivial comment, but we do get an indication of how to map it. You know the namespace that the subscribes track was to, and assuming you weren't doing overlapping ones, that's what we've been using to understand what the publish maps to. I'm not saying that's my favorite way to correlate to to do it, is compare strings. I hate comparing things.
That's probably the least problematic question on the, I agree, yep.
Martin Duke, Google. Yeah, so the overlap solves a lot of problem, but it doesn't solve the request update problem, except for group order, because group order can't be updated. Which is good because there's no group order. There's a group order track property that comes in. This all okay. Let me zoom out for a second and say that like we're in dire need of a table for all these parameters, because like some of them go in certain request types, some of them are only in certain response types, some of them can be updated, some of them can be update okayed. And like we need like a chart, and I would prefer to just be able to ignore rather than error on like unnecessary parameters. We should also talk about that or decide on that one way or the other. So this is a mess, and like this is just an indicator. I think if we actually write this down in a coherent way, it'll be easier to reason about, because right now there's just this thicket of things.
I agree. It's a little confused right now. I don't think it's a complete mess, but yeah, we're not in an optimal state. There's a few other things that I'll highlight later where we're not in an optimal state, but yeah.
I think the right answer, I mean, I think there's no great answer, but I think just sticking the parameters in every publish is like the simplest, most straightforward thing that can't really go wrong, and we should just do it.
And just specify which ones can go in publish, and for some
I mean,
reason,
we already, and please don't anyone go file an issue about making a table, because there's already an issue about making a table, which parameters go where. So we know, we'll fix it. After we get the wire image done, we'll make it easy to read.
All right, sounds good.
Michael Hosna, CDN77. I would just like to point out, with all the extensibility we are talking now about, we probably shouldn't solve this with like writing down all the parameters we have now or tables or stuff like that, because this needs to work in like general case for any parameter we will have in any extension down the line.
Yeah, I think we're going to end up with a list of parameters which are quote unquote subscription parameters, which like modify the state of the subscription, and those will be like allowed on basically subscribe, publish, and request update is my expectation. But that's me. There might be an exception. Well, mod asterisk, except when indicated otherwise, kind of thing.
Most United Cisco. So if you have more limits on what can actually go in subscribe tracks, would that help? If we were tight about what parameters could appear on subscribe tracks, would that help? Or there's already enough that this is,
Nah, I don't think so. Because filter, for example, can go in subscribe tracks, and that's actually useful. And like, it'd be good to know that. I don't think. I think that cat is out of the bag.
okay. Yeah, so I just, it just seems, it seems weird if we have to echo back everything in the publish. Because there could be a lot of stuff, right?
I mean, these are parameters. They're not properties. Hopefully people, when they're sending a subscription, are sending a moderate number of parameters. I can see properties getting pretty darn big because of auth hashes and crypto stuff. But
So is the favorite direction now just to echo everything back in the publish, that the current state of the publish? Is that the direction?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
There's a separate PR for not echoing back properties in case you.
So will we also echo the auth token?
That's a great example of a thing we would need text on. Martin, thank you. Can you make sure that makes the notes? Yes, that's a great example of something that would be dumb.
So Cisco, I think I agree with Alan here, and that keeps the original publisher puts in properties because it owns the tracks and it knows what it wants to do. It puts the properties, and sending it as it is makes a lot of sense. And on the auth token itself, we need to think there is a read token which subscribers will use, and there's a write token that the publisher will use. So at some point in time, the relay would not, for example, echo the auth token if that came from the publisher. It basically is looking at its downstream and saying, like, is it allowed to participate in that reading of the track? Yeah. So in that case, I don't think so. That's owned by publish. It's owned by the subscription that created it. Yep. So those kind of things kind of leans towards the point that what Alan was proposing is simple. If we want to optimize later, we can do it, but it's easy to reason about.
Oh,
thanks.
Okay, thanks. I mean, but yeah, that's a great example of something that's not just echoed back. Yep.
I didn't get in the queue, but Lorenzo made a comment in chat, which was about the subscribe tracks reference. Like, is it at all useful to have, how badly do people want to know this thing came from the subscribe tracks?
I can't remember, do we allow multiple subscribe tracks in the same namespace? We don't.
You can't have them overlapping.
You can't have them overlapping at all.
No.
Then it doesn't matter. Okay. That would be my opinion. If we allow them to be overlapping, it starts becoming interesting. All right. Thank you. I think then based on that, we will probably, I'll write up a new PR for allowing parameters that make sense in publish and make sure that ones that do not make sense are not included. And eventually we will add a table, or if someone else wants to write a PR that adds a table now, then they can do so. Or I guess AI can.
Oh, just on that final point, were you asking about overlapping namespaces or overlapping subscribe and a namespace?
I was specifically asking, is there a case when you could you could have two subscribe tracks and the same track could come to you as a result of, and the answer is no.
But for pinning, we do have a subscribe tracks of a namespace and then a subscribe in that namespace also.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep, that should be fine. Wonderful. Thank you. Track aliases. When can we reuse them or not? Okay. So currently, the text makes it very clear that for the same track, you can definitely reuse the same track alias. So, you do a subscription, then it ends, then 5 seconds later, you do a new one. It's totally kosher to use the same track alias twice. In other cases, we also allow it, and we don't really say too much about it. Depending on raciness and such, maybe it's a little bit tight. On the other hand, it does allow you to reuse 1 byte track aliases, which for some uses is, maybe the extra byte or two like matters. There are 3 options in my opinion. One is status quo, allow it, and if people want to shoot themselves in the foot, then they could do that. 2, add some slightly more cautionary text, like you probably shouldn't do this unless you really know what you're doing. And of course, that should not is one of those classic, you can if you really know what you're doing, but we think it's a little dangerous. And so it's not in practice that different from option 1, as being cautionary. And then the third option is say, you must not, and we actually might enforce it. if we detect it. Obviously, there would be no obligation to detect it. And that's it. And Cullen, go for it.
I think for me, it's very important that we're allowed to use it in the case where it's the same track name.
Yes, we're not changing that.
Yeah, okay.
That's not on the table.
Okay, thanks.
Not even, nope. So this is only about if it's a different track, like, are we just YOLO, which is status quo basically, or, yeah.
Jonathan, is there a way you can know that all previous things of the previous use of that track alias are done, so you can safely reuse it, or could they be buffered indefinitely?
You can know that all streams or datagrams have been closed and or sent for that track alias before using it. You can't guarantee that they're never delivered because, the internet delays. I mean, there could be some middle box that stores it on a hard drive and replays it a year later. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if you know that everything that the QUIC is, all the QUIC streams they're going to be sent on are closed, then I guess it's good. I don't know. It seems like, yeah, if you can't know that it's safe, then it's not safe. But the question is, do you care?
Alan Frindell, I think we should let people, there's probably somebody who's going to want that 1 byte and
maybe even 2 bytes.
Yeah. And I feel like handing them the foot gun is just fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need any cautionary text about said foot gun or I can't remember. I don't think we have any right now.
We can add something editorial if we really feel like it. But, and the other thing I want to mention, you can know that you've received all the streams because publish done has a stream count in it. We could put a datagram count in there too, but what do you do if it says I sent you 1 million datagrams and you got 999,000 of it? Where are the other ones? Are they coming? Are they not? Could you get them later? You'll never know. So it's just
Yep.
I can't get in the queue, but I think we should at least have enough text that people who review the draft don't open a new bug to tell us they found an issue with it.
I think that's a good point because I think we thought we were done with this. Okay, wonderful. Then we will add some editorial text to make sure that no one opens this issue ever again. And caution about how it might be dangerous. Okay, 869, limiting resource consumption of a subscription, aka flow control. So revisiting this just briefly and deciding what to do about it, if anything, prevents one subscription from starving others is the main goal, particularly using quick flow control. That's not really practical because it's not subscription oriented. Also might limit buffering for unknown subscriptions. I filed the issue in the DDoS repo, but there are cases it's a little tricky to know how much data to buffer for an unknown subscription. And you have to have heuristics anyway, but if you could just say I'm not going to buffer more than 2 megs for an unknown subscription until I actually know what the track alias is associated with, it might make the logic a little bit more reasonable to implement. So the main negative of adding flow control is nested flow control stinks and no one likes it. And managing it can be difficult. But you could also allow an endpoint could set a fairly generous flow control at the QUIC layer and use MOQ flow control as the primary source of flow control, which I think some people have kind of indicated they thought they were going to have to be fairly relaxed about their QUIC stream limits and buffer limits to make MOQ actually function well anyway. There are other approaches discussed in the issue, but streams and bytes seem to be the things that are limited in QUIC. And so it's still my thinking that probably that's where it makes sense to start. Victor, go for it.
Victor Vasilyev, Google. As usual, when describing flow control with subscriptions, my answer is you do not need flow control for subscriptions, and if you're doing it, you're doing something wrong. So let me explain why. Fundamentally, if subscriptions is if you don't have enough bandwidth to consume something, you do not subscribe to that. Now, the concern here is not just that, but also that there are some subscriptions that will starve the others. And I will point out that this is mostly an issue with priorities, which is to say, under most circumstances, you should have clear idea of what your priorities are. If the higher priority subscription starts off the lower priority subscriptions, that's not just side effects, it's the desired goal of the protocol. It is less clear to me whether what this means on relays, but I guess publisher priority applies for publisher to relay flight, and we're technically held that relays to relays are out of scope.
All right. Colin, did you want to comment on that, or?
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but like, relay is going to do what relays do. Like, I'm sort of poking around, wondering how much this is a quality of implementation issue and how much this is something we do need to comment on. And I don't have a strong opinion, but I do feel like there's going to have all kinds of extra policy information about the different types of subscribers and different types of things, which might change how they prioritize their internal use of bandwidth. And this is going to be hard to control from a client endpoint in a way that is acceptable. I don't know. I'm just trying to get my head around how I would implement that, or not how I'd implement this, how I'd merge this with the other constraints.
Yeah, I mean, when I originally thought about this, I was mostly thinking about it from like a relays upstream perspective, where you have N subscriptions on behalf of N different clients, or and so you want to like ensure that none of them are starving any of the others, and like if one of them uses the last stream from the other one, then like we're really sad. But that might be a quality of implementation problem more than anything else. So,
Martin Duke, when you say optional for who?
You don't have to set a limit, but if you do set a limit, yes, the sender has to respect it.
Okay.
So it's optional for the subscriber.
All right.
Because limiting how much you send is not really very hard.
Yeah, this seems like a giant new mechanism, and like the reason I ask if it's optional is I'm tempted to like say maybe this should be an extension.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, it doesn't save any editor bandwidth, but it does mean that if like this is not baked, then we can still ship MOQ without it.
Sure.
I can certainly live without this. I think other people can too.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Mosinati, I wondered about what Victor said. Could we use priorities? If you close credit to somebody, is that equivalent to dropping their priority to the lowest? If I close your window, is that the same thing as I give you priority 255?
No, because if you give me 100 streams of credit and I have 10 subscriptions, I can say like, each subscription only gets 10 streams max at once to make sure that like no one stomps on, I mean, that's an extreme case, but like, or a simplified case, but no one stomps on other people's like stream usage. Things like that. Cause like you can kind of run out of number of resources here. And so it's not purely prioritization in terms of bandwidth. It's partially just like you can run out of other resources. So it is partially about buffering though, for sure. Which is why like I tend to think of it as a issue that is more likely to hit relays than non-relays.
I guess the real concern would be if a particular track is opening many streams. That's the real concern, because it seems like everything else you can stop with priorities. I can stop your flow with priorities, but if you just start going nuts opening streams on me, that seems like the troublesome track.
That is a particularly troublesome track, yes.
And there's no way around that without having a per subscription stream limit.
Right, yeah, especially if you do like object per subgroup for like enhancement layers or something, you can burn through streams in a real area.
Could we make it only a stream limit, not a data limit?
Sure, we could.
It seems like with priorities, you could mitigate the data issues, but the stream issues are hard to stop.
That's a fair point. I mean, I think for a number of use cases, yeah, like you're going to burn through a lot of streams right now, which is fine, but yeah.
Antonio Cloudflare. I have not been following this one too much, but the situation of like someone setting flow control down to 0, subscribing to something, falling behind. Eventually, you have to actually terminate them in some way to actually prevent you from having problems. Is that really related to this? Something you should be making sure to actually like have somewhere in there encouraging people to actually get that right?
We have a too far behind error code that you can give if like someone gets too far behind. So unlike HTTP where you're just stuck buffering it and like indefinitely, there is kind of an out. So, okay. I think my takeaway is maybe an extension draft, although maybe people want to see a PR for only streams. Is that? Do people want to see a PR for only stream limits? Let me ask that question.
I mean, there's already 2 different PRs for this. We can easily strip out the bytes.
Sure.
If somebody wants to see the PRs are there. I don't know. My read of the room is that nobody's enthused about doing this right now, but they kind of think maybe they might need it. So I feel like we should just maybe move to an extension. You know, let's just publish it, our idea as an extension. And is anybody upset about that plan? If we
put in an extension, I have something else I want to pair this with in an extension because it's fun. So like, it'll be fine.
Okay.
Maybe you're sad. I mean, if you need this, you need this, and it needs to be in the base. It can't be an extension, right? So I think we need to figure out what the case of this is. And I'm reading it for the first time, so I'm sort of. Sure. And my read of the room is no one read it, right? Like that's.
That was kind of what happened previously, and I was hoping someone would read it before now.
I will say we have this, although Ian and I won't be here, but you guys are going to be here tomorrow, so you could spend all night reading these. They're not that long. Go read the PRs. Like, come back, talk about it tomorrow if you want.
Yeah. Okay. One near and dear to my heart. Today, there are some things you can update with publish OK. It turns out only one of those things I think is safe in retrospect, and everything else is a little sketchy. And so my proposal is you have to use request update immediately following a publish OK instead of being able to put the updates in the publish OK. And at a high level, the explanation is every other time you do an update to a subscription and its state, it's like request response. And so one of the things you get back, for example, is largest object. And so for like setting forward equals 0, if you set forward equals 0 today and publish OK, you don't actually know what the largest object that is coming back to you is, which maybe for some cases that's okay, but it's also really awkward. But this is sort of just like an edge case that we allow this. So I think we currently allow location filters, forward, and priority. Location filters are also problematic for a similar reason that like you need to know where, what like next group or something are. So there's a PR. The simple proposal is don't allow publish OK to update state, just put it in a request update, which can be literally in the same packet as the publish OK. And that means you actually get a request OK in response, including location or largest object or any other things that need to come back with it. The goal here is just to simplify the state machine.
So Cisco, I think that's a good design to have. And I like the fact that because we are sending the request update right behind publish OK, you're not wasting RTT or anything there.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Does anyone object to this? Okay. I'm going to move on and then, we're at Alan. See, I give you plenty of time.
Maybe have time. We have some like bonus slides from Will even we might get to him. We'll see. Which token caused the error? So requests can carry more than one auth token. And request error, there's a request error code or 2 codes that talk about tokens. One that says it was malformed and another one that says it was expired. But the error does not tell you which of your tokens could have triggered that problem. If you imagine like the HTTP equivalent, you might that 4xx, would maybe could have theoretically used a response body or something, but our request error like doesn't have a way to carry that. So do we need a conditional field in request error that like if you got one of these 2 tokens, then we also include additional information about which one? I don't know what the alternative is. We could do nothing. We could use, I don't know. I have no idea. Colin, I thought you would have an opinion.
I mean, this is in the how we spell it category, which I generally don't care about, but like the tokens are big. You could put an integer that was like the third token got this error or whatever. It could be that we need to change the token message a little bit so the tokens are named and you get back the name of the token. There might be other reasons for doing that so that things could know which tokens they were looking for. I don't know. I think there's a few things we could, I think we need to solve this problem somehow. That's obviously I found the bug, but I think there's a couple of different ways we could spell this that were all pretty easy.
I agree. I guess I'm a little bit just looking for some spelling. Like, do people say like, yes, this is a problem we've got to solve, and let's solve it by making a request error, have some field for it? Martin, do.
So if there are 3 tokens and one of them fails, is that a successful request?
Not if you got a request error that said expired auth token. I think the use case, Martin, is like some people might have tokens that are valid at different CDNs. And so I might have 2 tokens, which the other guy was like, I can't even use these. They're not for me, but the one that I care about is malformed. I think that's I don't know, maybe I can also just punt this to the auth design team. I was trying to take out an easy issue, but maybe
that might be nice. Well, so I mean, I guess I imagine that if I send you 3 tokens and one of them is good, I think that's a successful request. And so like, why would I, or they're all bad, in which case they're all malformed auth tokens, right? So I feel like I'm not an auth expert. I'm definitely not on the auth design team. This seems backwards, like this whole
But they could contain different claims. That I think is the point. So the ones that contains the claim that you need to execute the operation might be what's blocking, or malicious or expired or whatever. It's like something is wrong with the one which should give you the right to do it.
So you need one of them, and you only want to make the requester replace that one rather than all of them. Yeah. Okay.
I'm agreeing with Martin here of that. You know, we have this design that I think that the auth team has talked about this a little bit. I don't know, I'm not claiming there's any agreement on it, but I think at least some of us, myself included, think that as long as there's one token that is a valid token and covers the scope you want, then you allow the operation. It's an or of all the tokens, not an and, right? And one of the cases that's really important in these types of tokens is you're moving from version 1 tokens to version 2 tokens. Half your relays don't even know what a version 2 token is. It's a malformed auth token as far as they're concerned, or a token that they certainly can't parse. But you want your clients to be including both tokens so that you can have a migration process, right, from one type to another. This happens all the time. So we've got to make sure we don't break cases like that, and we have some way of dealing with it. And I mean, after this discussion here, I think that my issue is woefully inadequate and needs more text.
Yeah, I thought about it. Like, it seems like a minor optimization to just tell the client which one is doing, and I think this opens up a whole range of questions, like what if multiple tokens fail? And I would do nothing. Thanks.
You said do nothing, like delete. Oh,
yes.
Okay, but
do not change it.
Is that going to work for you, Cullen? You filed the issue. Yeah, I didn't.
No,
think
that's
so.
nuts. I sent 5 up. I sent 5 tokens up, and then the request got back failed. What do I do? Like, what do I even if I'm not going to do anything? What do I log in my messages to explain and debug what's going on? Like, we've got to get more information about what caused the failure, right? Particularly, I mean, even just the expired things, right? Like, say my clock's a little bit time shifted with the other one. I mean, we need to understand these things. Like, we've got to understand what went wrong.
Okay.
Mark,
like,
I expect you agree with me.
So you know there's an auth failure with one of your tokens, which is not. So like worst case, if there are 5 tokens, maybe if you're completely ignorant about your tokens, you're renewing all 5 of them, which seems like not optimal, but not disastrous.
I mean, let's say the problem is one of my tokens has a syntax error in them, and the only error I get back is auth error. The only thing I can do is refresh all of them and try my request again, which will instantly fail again. And I will do this as fast as I can, repeatedly slamming the relays. Like that's not the right design.
Well, there is a
But that
retry.
is what I will do if that's the only error.
Request error does have retry after, so if the relay doesn't want you to come back that fast, it'll tell you.
But how does knowing that token 4 is failed tell you that there's a syntax error and how to fix the syntax error?
Well, knowing whether it was that the token was expired, token 4 was expired, and I needed to refresh that and could try again, is a very different thing from token 4 is malformed and you need to probably not retry, right?
That we do have, right? We have codes that tell you was it malformed or was it expired. That much you will learn.
Well, I mean, even that's really unclear when you have different errors on 2 different tokens at the same time. And I'm fine with we could just take the first one, but I'm just getting this,
I'm happy to short circuit this discussion by adding an integer and moving on with my life.
I've said enough.
I do care, and I believe that we need to have an indication of which token failed.
Sold.
And we could also notice that we only have 2 errors, but many other claims can be wrong, like geolocation typically. And so I don't know how it is indicated today. And so potentially we should also name the claim that fails the tokens.
Okay. I'm going to give two options here. Option 1 is we put in an integer. Option 2 is I punt the entire thing to the design team, and they come back and tell me that I need to have like 17 fields that like tell me all the different things that could possibly be wrong.
Well, if it is with the cat token, we have the CTI to transport the indicators of the token which is failed, and we could have the claims key.
I mean, the thing is, MOQ supports 2 to the 64 token types, so I don't know what's going to be in any of those.
But what is very good that I am not in the design team, so I'm very happy to give them the work.
Okay, I think this may already be in the list, but anyway, Mike and Colin, you have inherited this one. I'm not going to touch it. Have fun. Prefer structured MOQ query space. Okay, so back to our MOQ URL. So the MOQ URL follows the HTTPS URL, which does not define any structure of the query beyond what 3986 syntax and the percent encoding rules, which means like, people are very used to seeing query strings that have like name equals value and name equals value. Well, that is application XW form URL encoded, and it's really just a convention. Even HTTP does not require that be the only thing that you do. It's just what people do. We do have a requirement that a MOQ URL be convertible into an HTTPS URL, because when you send your client hello and you say, well, I'm willing to do web transport or raw MOQ, then if it comes back and says, great, I picked H3, like you need to be able to send this URL over HTTP. So that's data. And then, so do we want to put any requirements here? And should any part of the key namespace be registered in some sort of first come, first served table? So I'll also note that HTTP does not do this. Basically, the query space is owned by the resource, like whatever the hostname and path is, gets to define whatever the query string means to it. And so that is not something that HTTP does. So opine away. Colin?
I would have been happy to present this bug.
But you're welcome. If you have more that you want to say, so, please.
I think that the thing that HTTP obviously doesn't do this, and I think that we've learned in HTTP that that's sort of depressing at times, because it means you don't have a common way of knowing you might be able to merge 2 different things together. So if a given resource wants to implement some way of using this space, right? And one wants to do it one wants to do it one way and one wants to do it the other way. There's no really clear way to merge them together. You can have conflicts. Now, we have come up with a convention that many things use, which makes it easier to converge those things back together. But since we're defining a new spec and a new thing here, we could just say, you must use this convention, the normal sort of convention you often see on HTTP. Right? And that doesn't the fact that we say in a MOQ URL it has to sort of fit this syntax, that would give us a lot of flexibility in future things, and that we can have more than one application or usage thing that's trying to put things here instead of only having one that can define what goes there, which is what happens in HTTP. So I think this gives us a bunch of flexibility for something that we wish we had in HTTP and we didn't because we didn't define it at the beginning. I don't think it causes any problems in mapping it to HTTP URLs because what we're proposing is totally valid for HTTP. And it's just sort of saying, instead of having this de facto convention that you can't really count on working in HTTP, it's not a de facto. You can count on it working in MOQ. And it's not like it's going to limit what people can do in any way. They can still do, everyone could restructure their data to be in that form. So it seems like super low cost to us, and it gives us a bunch of flexibility down the road is what I'm thinking. And that's sort of where I think this is valuable for extensibility, and the fact that HTTP doesn't do it was, because it couldn't, it didn't define it early enough.
Would anybody else like to comment on this issue?
I run this past TED for the URI aspect, and maybe ask the HTTP director if they have any feedback from the HTTP's perspective. But yeah.
For whatever reason, I cannot understand what the chairs are saying, so I have to look at the transcript. It comes out.
Yeah, I mean, totally fair to do that, but I don't think that they will have any. They're just like, well, this is a further constraint on some bytes we were already fine with.
Yeah.
So it seems unlikely. I mean, definitely worth doing, but I
see an HTTP technical expert at the mic.
Yes.
As well. So this is something, Mike Bishop, this is something that we've seen in a couple other instances. Core has their compact CRI thing that defined an optimization if your URI happens to have key equals value pairs. And constraining the space here should be fine. And I mean, particularly if the equals is optional, if you have something that isn't key equals value, you just have a very long key and no value. So, and defining that it gets interpreted that way, sure, that should be fine.
Are you saying this is okay, or yes, you should grab the bull by the horns and do this?
I think this is fine and it's probably useful.
Okay.
So long as your requirement is that MOQ-T URIs be convertible to HTTPS and not the other way around.
I know less about if that's a requirement, but
because like if you require this, there are potential HTTP URIs that then would not be valid MOQ-T unless the equals is optional, and I don't know the encoding specifics to know whether it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Michael Hosna, CDN 77. Would we expect the clients and servers to now must understand this and parse it?
I mean, not any more than an HTTP server already. I mean, if it's an HTTPS URL,
it wouldn't change that in any way. But if you were writing an application that required you to look at this in some extension or some other thing, then like, yeah, you have to be able to parse whatever you define, but no.
Then I have questions about scope.
Ooh, yes.
It's all part of the scope.
Especially about the case if I have like two same key value pairs, but in different order, should they be the same scope?
That's such a spicy question. Reminder that a MOQ-T scope is defined by its connection URL, and that includes the path, which includes the query. So,
sorry, just a minute. Maybe we're talking about different things here, but that's
are you talking about what's after the fragment? Because
I'm talking about what's after the fragment. You're talking about what's before the fragment.
No. We're gonna. I'm thinking.
Sorry,
we made progress on an issue that was not the one you filed.
This is query.
I think I should probably just punt on this. I think we got some feedback. We'll have to revisit this, and maybe Colin, we can get a little bit more info in the bug about what you're hoping to accomplish. Okay. there is this text in the draft about the relationship between MOQ-T versions and extensions. There's two sentences. One says, new versions of MOQ-T have to say what existing extensions can be used with that version. And which I think is around like, I don't know if we mean, this sort of reads literally, like I have to go find every extension in the universe and enumerate whether it's going to work or not, or perhaps we could maybe mean something more general, like because MOQ-T version 2 has the same, is more or less wire compatible, anything that worked with V1 will work with V2. Or if we change something about, I don't know, the object model, we might say, okay, any extension that conformed to this constraint would work. I think that's what we're trying. The other sentence is new extensions must specify what versions of MOQ-T they can be used with. So if I come up with cool extension 1 and I can say this works with MOQ-T v1 or anything that is wire compatible with MOQ-T v1, and then I don't know, or say where we've already published 4 versions of MOQ-T, and then I come up with an extension, but I only work with the latest version. You have to be on MOQ-T 4 because we redid the object model to be something else or something. So several questions. One, how do we feel about all this text? I'm pretty sure the second sentence seems good. I think the motivation is like, just think about when you're writing extensions and future us updating the draft, like think about your compatibility matrix. The issue also discusses something different, which is about what if we have a future version of MOQ-T, which we think is going to, we want it to require some extension we have also defined between now and that time. And what role does IANA play in any of this? I think in that case, my thought is like, if there's, let's say, cool extension 1, we want MOQ-T v2 to be like MOQ-T v1 plus cool extension 2, then we will do one of two things. We will either say, in MOQ-T v2 that you must send the setup parameter that enables that thing to some non-zero value, or we will just take the content of that extension and we will include it in MOQ-T v2. And so I'm not sure that we need this other thing.
Hi, Rowan May. I consider myself a bit of a negotiation and feature version nut. Like in that I like working on these things. I think those two sentences I think are good. I don't think IANA should really play much of a part in saying this is for this version or whatever. I think that should be in the text of the extensions, should be in the text of a new future version of the MOQ transport. And I want to point out one very nice feature of the text that you have there, which is it is really, really useful to be able to deprecate either an extension or just a property. Like you may want to be like, this property was a terrible idea. I never want to use it again. You want to be able to
priority
things.
It should be 2 priority. Thank you, Ron.
Mosinati, if by extension here we mean setup option?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we should be explicit and say setup option because that's the thing that's actually going to get IANA registered, right? The IANA registry is setup options, right?
Well, okay, I'm sorry. The text where the text uses the word extension, I believe it's in the context of a broader, like an extension draft that may have a setup option.
That's my problem, is that we're not going to register anything called extension anywhere, right? If it uses 5 setup options, we register 5 setup options, and that's what goes in IANA, right? We don't have an IANA registry called extensions.
That is correct.
Right? So we're only talking about setup options,
yes.
A table of those. So that registry is just going to have a column for V1, V2, or something like that. Can we get it out of it that way?
I think I see what you're saying. When you register a new setup option, you list the versions of MOQ-T that you think it is legal to send them in. But then when we ship a new version of MOQ-T, we have to go update that table to include all the ones we think are valid. And
well, the IANA table itself would have a column for each MOQ version. It would have a column that says versions or something.
I mean, I'm also trying to avoid us having some future administrative headache, if possible.
But I think the mapping in this table should be the MOQ setup options registry, and that you just have a column for MOQ version inside of that, and then it's up to the MOQ editors when V2 gets published to go back at that table and add version 2 to all the extension to all the setup options that are allowed in V2. And new setup option registrars would add their row and figure out what versions they work with and add the right data in that column.
That would work for me to solve this issue. I'm not sure if it works for everyone. I can't see who's next.
Ian.
Ian.
I was going to comment. I think in general, less is more, but in particular, like, I mean, if we make a new version, we're going to do whatever we want. Like, I don't understand like, what the % means. Like, I mean, us now is going to constrain us from 5 years ago. Like, whatever, we're going to publish the RFC we want. Like, I don't know. It just seems kind of like bizarre to say that. But the second sense seems sensible.
Okay.
So what is the registration policy for these things? Can I have a private one? And if so, does the new version have to specify whether you can still use my private extension?
I'm not remember. I mean, I think I don't remember what the policy is. I'm sorry.
That sounds like a terrible idea. I think the new version should specify which, IETF defined things, but it shouldn't have to specify every extension that everybody ever thought of, whether they told you about them or not. So that first must seems like a bad must.
I agree. I think I'd like to change that first sentence to be something along the lines of like more generic, not trying to enumerate specific extensions.
Okay. Individual comment here. From my perspective, I do think it's enough that the future version main specification tells you if they have any requirements on versions, extensions, features, so to say. I think the setup is global across all versions, if I remember correctly. So these names are uniform across all versions of MOQ as long as you call it MOQ because I think that's what's defining it. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any point of having an IANA table or something for a version which extensions. I think the extension themselves should maybe specify versions, and you have the table of versions that's been defined just so you can find them for the main specifications. So, but
okay.
Try and trudge way back in memory here of why this is when we were like, I think we were in Stockholm or something. We're trying to sort through how this worked is where it came up. So remind me, so if an extension, so let's say version 1 of MOQ comes out, and after that there's a new extension made, but this is long before version 2 of MOQ is done or whatever. How is that signaled in the setup?
I mean, if you want to speak the extension, you send like you negotiate MOQ v1, and in your setup message, you have the setup option or options associated with your extension that say, I support this. It's not a new, there's no MOQ version that's specified. Okay. Like for example, QUIC v1 works with datagrams.
So look, I went looking in the draft right now. I'm not sure I could find text on that's workable. I think maybe we should just update some text that says that. I can put an issue for that. I should probably check more carefully whether that text is already there or not. But
sorry, what is the text you're suggesting?
What you just said.
There is I would go read the section on extensions, and there actually someone did file a non-regular who's filed an issue, which I've interacted a bit, which is like, I want to write an extension, but your text is, I'm not understanding what you want me to do, but I've gone through the text and tried to make some updates there, but I think it tells you what you're supposed to do, which is like step 1, setup option is how you tell people that you have an extension. And then, then once you do that, you can change, as long as the peer also sends it, you can say what, you can change the rules of everything. You can make subscribe go backwards or whatever.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. I know you wanted to bring in the other slides. In our judgment, that is too spicy for now. It will slide. So please take a look at issue 1453. We'll discuss that in a future interim, probably. Issue 1453, and then we're going to switch to something completely different, which is Yanmei, our as time allows presenter. So please go ahead.
Okay, 7 minutes, that's enough. Hi, I'm Yanmei from Alibaba. Today I will introduce a new scenario for Over QUIC and also for the discussion to discuss these requirements for feedback. So first part I will quickly introduce is how to use this Over QUIC for the live agent streaming, about the scenario and also the performance metrics comparing to the WebRTC. And the part 2, we will go back to the feedback mechanism, and also we will discuss about how to support this in relay architectures. So first, we will go quickly through this scenario. It's kind of like we have this application, and people could use it to have a video call with the video call with this Omni model, and users can use this application to identify the real-world objects through these video frames, and also these agents could understand their purpose and also could give them some recommendations and also this shopping assistance, and also these agents could help the users complete related tasks. And all these low latency communication are all over Medieval QUIC. And we have 2 A/B tests about this transportation layer. And the first one is about using the Medieval QUIC, and then the second one is using the WebRTC. And we find out that the Medieval QUIC, they really has a much more faster session setup. And the key point is that we can use this Dero RTT connection build through the Medieval QUIC, and also we are able to get a better QoS through this multi-stream priority, and even we could get some better TTFT. And now we're back to the feedback. First, we focus on the problem it solves. Actually, we already have many feedback inside the transport layer, like the ACK and also the time step of ACK and ECN and RTT. But that's not enough for the original publisher to notice whether the service quality targets has already met or not at the receiver side. So we need to brought this MOQT layer feedback. It's kind of like you can use this feedback like objects complete time, and also how many objects has missed the deadline, and also the receiver side rate. And also we need to add more QE feedback for the application layer. It's kind of like whether the players has suffering some rebuffering, and also whether it stalls, so you can get better QE through this feedback. I believe in last, the IETF people has asked the question how to use this feedback through this relay architecture. Now we brought the solution here. We have designed 2 kind of different feedbacks. The first kind is the last mile feedback is consumed by the L1 relay. The second kind is the original feedback, and the L1 relay could choose to forward it to the original publisher, and the original publisher could use the feedback to decide the target bit rate. And we have 2 target use case scenarios. The first one is live streaming. For this kind of scenario, the original publishers typically has already transcoded this content into a different ABR ladder. So there are different levels of ABRs, and the feedback is usually consumed at the last mile. And the second scenario is for the audio and the video conferencing. The original publisher may need to collect all these feedbacks from all these sessions, attend this meeting. So to avoid, there are too many feedbacks, the L1 could aggregate these reports through a short period, like 5 seconds, and it can decide a better QE for this kind of situation. Now we're back to end-to-end feedback passes. Last time we have introduced this scenario, and it can work for live agents and also for things like cloud rendering and also cloud gaming. And people might wondering, how does these feedback signals make the QE better? There are 2 ways. The first way is to consume by the congestion controller like GCC, and it could control the sending rate and also the pacing rate. And the second way is to consume by the original publisher. the original publisher could use the feedback to decide a better target bit rate and also decide the proper frame rate. So we have some experience for these experiments through with this feedback or without this feedback. Now we get the lower rebuffering rate, and also there are less objects which miss the deadline, and also we have a lower store duration through these experiments. About the next step, we are going to update the feedback draft to the next version, including all these mechanisms we have discussed today. And also we are going to collect more experimental data. And in the next version, we're trying to find out how to use this feedback with web transport. And also we really need more feedback from the mail list and from you.
Thanks, Yanmei. Any questions, comments? Jordi?
Hi, Jordi from Meta. Thanks a lot for the presentations. I'm really interested in all of this. Just one question. Could you tell us order of magnitude how big your experiment was?
Excuse me?
How big the experiment was? I mean, millions of connections, hundreds, thousands, just order of magnitude.
10,000.
10,000?
Yeah.
Of connections?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mosinati Cisco. I think this is interesting to consider the feedback direction. And one thing that you may want to look at is tomorrow we're going to talk about the top tracks filter. One of the use cases of that is to optimize the fan in of many feedback tracks back to an original publisher. So that wouldn't give you details from every single subscriber, but if you wanted to aggregate that feedback and get the top of some of those, that would help the fan in scenario be manageable by a smaller original publisher.
Yeah, that's
the queue is closing very soon.
Okay, Louis from Nokia. Just I think this is very also interesting, but I just want to know that there is your plan to how to negotiate that how things can be reported.
Yeah, this parameter is negotiated at the setup period, and we could send you a link of this draft after this meeting. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, or most of you, to talk about some of the many other drafts that we have floating around this working group. Have a nice evening. Thank you.